Dearness Allowance, or DA, is a crucial component of employee salaries, especially for government and public sector workers. It's designed to offset the impact of inflation on their purchasing power. In simpler terms, DA helps them afford the same basic goods and services, even when prices rise. Without it, their standard of living would erode, making it harder to make ends meet. Imagine a world where your salary stays the same, but the cost of food, rent, and transportation keeps going up. That's the reality for many employees without adequate DA protection. DA is more than just a perk, it's a fundamental right of employees. It recognizes the basic human need for a stable and dignified life. Governments and employers have a moral obligation to ensure their employees can afford basic necessities. The principle behind DA is simple. As the cost of living increases, so should salaries. This ensures that workers don't bear the brunt of inflation alone. A fair and timely DA ensures employees are not financially disadvantaged by factors beyond their control. The responsibility for determining and implementing DA often falls on a designated committee, typically composed of economists, policymakers, and labor representatives. This Dearness Allowance Committee is tasked with analyzing economic data, assessing the impact of inflation on living costs, and recommending appropriate DA adjustments. In a perfect world, their recommendations would be implemented swiftly and transparently, ensuring employees receive the financial support they need. However, the current reality is far from perfect. The Dearness Allowance Committee, once a beacon of hope for employees, is facing a crisis of credibility. Its decisions are often met with skepticism and distrust, largely due to the inconsistent implementation of its recommendations. The committee's pronouncements have become akin to empty promises, creating a sense of disillusionment among those who depend on them the most. This lack of implementation stems from a multitude of factors, including bureaucratic inertia, political expediency, and a lack of transparency in the decision-making process. The committee's recommendations often become entangled in a web of red tape, delaying their implementation and eroding public trust. The consequences of this inaction are far-reaching and detrimental. Employees, already struggling to cope with rising living costs, are left feeling betrayed and ignored. Their frustration is palpable, leading to a decline in morale and productivity. Public trust in the government and its institutions is also eroded, as citizens witness a system that appears rigged against them. Furthermore, the non-implementation of DA decisions creates a breeding ground for political opportunism. Politicians, sensing the public's discontent, often exploit the situation for their gain. They may make grand promises about DA increases, knowing full well that these promises are unlikely to be kept. This cynical manipulation further erodes public trust and undermines the legitimacy of the entire system. The situation demands immediate and decisive action. The longer the issue festers, the more damage it inflicts on the social fabric. The government must recognize that DA is not just a financial matter, it's a matter of social justice and public trust. So how do we fix this broken system? How do we restore faith in the Dearness Allowance Committee and ensure that employees receive the financial support they deserve? The answer lies in a multi-pronged approach that prioritizes transparency, accountability, and a genuine commitment to the well-being of the workforce. Firstly, the Dearness Allowance Committee must operate with greater transparency. Its decisions, the data on which they are based, and the reasons for any delays in implementation should be made public in a clear and accessible manner. This open approach would allow for greater public scrutiny, making it more difficult for decisions to be influenced by political considerations or bureaucratic bottlenecks. Secondly, a mechanism must be established to hold the relevant authorities accountable for the timely and full implementation of the committee's recommendations. This could involve setting clear timelines for implementation, with penalties for non-compliance. Such a system would ensure that DA adjustments are not subject to political whims or bureaucratic delays, but are implemented as a matter of course. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, the government must foster a culture of respect and dialogue with employee unions and representatives. Regular consultations should be held to understand the real-world impact of inflation on employees' lives and to ensure that DA adjustments reflect their genuine needs.